Join the stars of the Ancient Aliens TV show, Eric Von Doniken, as he returns to Manchester after an amazing response to his last presentation. David Childress will guide you through the evidence left behind. Mike Barrow will take you to other worlds, where Nick Pope will present the real X-Files. Paola Harris will share incredible testimonies. It's time to believe and raise consciousness. Join like-minded souls on Saturday, June 23rd, 2018 for Awakening. What do you believe?
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Paola Harris, who is an Italian-American photojournalist and investigative reporter in the field of extraterrestrial-related phenomenal research. Now she's also a widely published freelance writer, especially in Europe. Now she's studied extraterrestrial-related phenomena since 1979 and is on personal terms with many of the leading researchers in the field. Now from 1980 to 86, she assisted Dr. J. Allen Hynek with his UFO investigations and has interviewed many top military witnesses concerning their involvement in the government truth embargo. Now in 97, Miss Harris met and interviewed Colonel Corso in Roswell, New Mexico, and became a personal friend and confidant. Now she was instrumental in having his book The Day After Roswell, for which she wrote the preface translated into Italian. Now she released her new book Conversation with the Colonel Corso on the 1st of April 2017. Paola lives in Rome and Boulder, Colorado, and has a master's degree in education and photojournalism. Paola Harris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. From across the pond here, it's really nice to talk to you. I'm in Boulder, Colorado. I'm
so honored to have you on, especially without, someone as seasoned as you, if I can say that in a nice way. Do you know what I mean? Someone that's really dedicated their life to this field and is on her own ascension course and is also progressing as the work takes you in the direction it has taken you now, from nuts and bolts to consciousness. And I find it difficult sometimes nowadays, that I never used to get researchers on to my show, right? I mean, I've just tried to email Bill Ryan, there's no reply, David Wilcock, it was a no, Stephen Greer, Anna, from his partner Anna, it was an absolute no. As soon as they see my channel and they see that I do consciousness subjects on there, it may as well shut the door on them. I'm sure it does. Yeah, but I don't think Stephen Greer is like that, because he's aligned with me on consciousness. Is he? Dr. Greer, Grant Cameron, and Colin Andrews are the people that I've worked with over the last 40 years that have changed their mind and have gone the way of consciousness studies, but always remaining with their feet on the ground, because I want to, remind your listeners, we're not talking New Age. This is not a New Age situation. No. This is the matter of awakening the planet, because, and Dr. Greer is one of those people that does it, but he's so busy, and he's just has a film. I really love the man, right? I know he doesn't like people that much, right? Okay, but I still love him. No, right? He likes people. The problem is he has no patience anymore. Right. Okay. And I've been watching the infighting in the field. Oh, it's terrible. And the silliness. It's terrible. And the silliness. And I'm telling you, I have no patience anymore either, because we don't have time. The planet is in trouble. The messages we're getting from the contactees are, you people better get it together, because you're going to have an ecological disaster, which means there's going to be problems over water, over icebergs melting, over the weather being too hot, over, just ecological, meaning weather-oriented or planetary-oriented, yes. Or, the United States just pulled out of the climate change thing. Yes. And, they're going, stop playing games with silliness, which our field researchers are. There are too many gatekeepers on what they call the truth.
and get it together.
Absolutely.
So I think that a lot of us are losing patience anymore, and I want to remind your listeners that everything I've ever done in my whole career has been field research, which means I just came back from Italy. I did an interview on the Amicizia case, the friendship case up in Lake Como. I just came back from Spain. This year I was in Chile, and I've been in Argentina. I've been all over the United States. I'm trying to gather real facts.
Yes, you're going out there.
Yeah, I'm going out there on my own dime. I mean, I have no sponsors. But the thing is that anymore, it's serious. Most of the sightings are over the Ukraine. I've talked to my colleague who's a journalist like me, Jaime Maussan, and the videos that are coming in are over Russia. So what in the world, over the fighting areas of the United States, of Russia, and over trouble areas of U.S., where there's nuclear reactors. So these visitations, these, sightings that are going on all over are warnings and awakening signs to humanity to stop playing around.
You mean you coming on mean as much to all my guests coming on? Do you know what I mean, Paula? You're all as equal to me. You're all as beautiful, and I extend that to Stephen Greer. And I know one day I'll get him on. But I mentioned some other names at the beginning as well because I did want to get David Wilcock on, and I wanted to have it not out with him.
No, but he's a movie star. Well, you have to look at these guys, okay? They have their own shows. They don't do anything. Yeah, they have to their own shows, which means they're paid, and they have become entertainment. So what the problem is that anybody that asks them, it's like asking an actor or someone in show business. You have to pay them, and that is a whole different side of ufology. It's a whole different side.
It is. Well, what hurts sometimes is that I always say to myself, right, whenever you make it, whatever that means, right, whenever you just get a little bit bigger than you are, never forget the people, that need your help as well. I always say that to myself. So when I get turned down by people, it just, I can understand it because, they've got a message to get out, but, they'll soon go on to Coast and go on to that show because it's syndicated on multiple stations and everything else. It's a big output, and, they just don't want to waste their time coming up on the smaller shows, and they don't say that sometimes. Or it's some other material that you're putting out that they're not, aligned to, which is fine, but, that's...
I really don't think it's that. I think they're too busy, and I don't go in that direction. Kevin, I'm going to be clear on your show. There is a difference between the entertainment industry and ufology and the people that are really doing the work. Okay, so the entertainment business and ufology and the movie stars, and there's so many of them, are just out there because they have to make a living. The people that are behind the scenes, that are working, that are trying to get the new material, that are trying to find out what's going on, they don't have time to have their own shows. They don't have time to do this kind of stuff, that kind of stuff. Even though I did do a spot for Gaia Television with George Noory recently on my book on Colonel Corso, the Colonel Corso book is a real whistleblower book. Colonel Philip Corso was the Pentagon, official when he in the 1960s who had the Roswell artifacts and went to big companies, and And that is real stuff.
Well, we're going to get into Colonel Corso and your work. The reason I'm bringing these people up right now is because we just need to look at this, as we can't ignore it. Let's just include it in this conversation because this will lead into Colonel Corso, right? Listen, I'm not here. The Dark Journalist and Bill Ryan, they've done their interview, which has sent ripple effects into Corey Good and David Wilcock. David Wilcock's not been online since June the 23rd, so there's obviously things going on, right? my point in all this conversation is that we should be working together. That we don't need to be defamatory and people. Well, that's not the right word, but bringing people down and saying that they're bad people and all this. I like the interview that Bill Ryan and what's the chap's name? They did Bill Ryan and
Richard Dolan.
Richard Dolan did the other day.
Yeah.
Now, Richard Dolan brought some etiquette to the whole subject. And actually, like he said, he's got nothing against Corey Goode and anyone else. They're probably really nice people. And, but he's all about, where the facts go. And if there's no facts to back up what people are saying, then, then he can't take them on, as full credit. And Richard Dolan is actually going on to the MUFON stage with Corey Goode and a lot of the other secret space program people, and will give a different take on the whole thing in front of them all, which is fine.
Yeah, I was there. I was there. I was there during the whole entire conference, because the only way that I can find out, and let me make this clear to the listeners, uninformed opinions, people who do not do the work, who are not there, who have no idea what's going on, shouldn't even be, is just gossip. I wanted to go there because I wanted to hear everybody. I wanted to hear what everybody had to say. So I paid to go as a participant. I was at the whole entire weekend, and there's a little bit of everything. I personally am not convinced because of a whole lack of answers to questions that I personally have, and it's very difficult. For me, the most powerful lecture was Danny McKinnon, who I believe is a real whistleblower, and he moved me to tears because I was listening to him over the Skype, and he said that he was so persecuted that he considered committing suicide. And he had it all ready to go because he said that the government persecuted him, called him all kinds of names, said that he was, disloyal. He didn't have his own TV show, okay? That is someone who by accident, but he was inspired by Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project, found out not only, I didn't realize he saw, images of UFOs. I didn't realize he saw the images. I didn't realize it. I thought all he saw was the names. And he said, and so the question was asked to him, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it? And he goes, no. So the thing is that for me, whistleblowers are like him, Colonel Corso, people that were inside, truly inside, and risked their lives and their careers. They don't have their own TV show and, become movie stars. I mean, that is something now that's happening.
Well, let me just say this, right? I've seen Corey Goode's interview recently with is it Teresa, the young lady that's interviewing him, the journalist that he met through Contact in the Desert. And I was watching his interview, and I was like, you know what? If only he had got someone like yourself, if only he'd approached Paola Harris to do that interview with him, right?
I wouldn't have done it. I would have been a waste of my time. I went up to him and spoke to him there at the conference. I will tell you, and I will tell the people, he's very spiritual. He's a very spiritual person. But I wouldn't. It's a waste of my time. It really is. There is no way of proving anything. And the situation is, I do believe he was part of a program. I believe they were all part of a program. But I don't know where the reality and the imagination sets in. I don't know what part.
Well, let me just add to that. Yeah, the whole idea of the 20-year back, where he's been 20 years back and forth and everything else, and then it's been time regressed. I mean, I was thinking to myself today before this interview, I'm like, right, I'm I channel, and anyone could come after me and attack me for what I do and what I bring through. But I'm not saying that I've gone through a time regression. Do you know what I mean? I'm, there's loving information that's coming through, but but then again, I could say, well, there's no corroboration, with other people for the information I could bring through or others could bring through. So I can see, if Corey is in the same boat in one sense. But then again, he is stating that, he went on this time regress program and everything else. Do you know what I mean? So it's a little bit different, isn't it? Yeah, I think you're right that there's something more than meets the eye here. There's something, he's been in the program, like you say, but it's not exactly how he's saying it. There's misinformation mixed with his information here. There has to be.
Exactly, and with all of it, with all the people who spoke, the two things that really didn't sit well with me is that he never talked about ETs during his speech, and he reiterated what Tompkins reiterated, that we were a slave planet, and Tompkins went even farther, talking about reptilians working with the Germans. I'm sorry, I don't buy that stuff. In all my 40 years, even in Europe, and I lived in Europe for 15 years, I never heard that. I think this is, and that's fear tactics.
Yes.
And his talk at MUFON, he never ever once mentioned the blue avian.
But no, right.
Never once.
No, but he's still in contact with it. Well, no, I'm okay with him being intuitively in contact with an alien race, right? But that to me that's channeling. Now, I'm never going to get in the company of Corey Goode. Corey Goode is never in my lifetime going to want to speak to me, because he knows, or maybe some intuitive part of him knows, that we would have a very deep conversation. I wouldn't hate him. I would love the guy. Do you know what I mean? Just like I'm loving you and anyone else. I'm not that kind of person, but it would never be a deep conversation of like, you know what, Corey, I think it's this or it's that. I don't know if I go with you. He's what I'm saying. He's brought other people that surround him that just want to go with it and go with it. It's like, hang on, people, where is that word discernment? And that's one word that I use with the channeling as well. Always use discernment. And it's like people's discernment meter has just gone off the chart, and it's like it doesn't exist. Well, hang on, it has to exist somewhere.
It has to, and I will add that I've written 5 books, and I have 2 witnesses that say we have a secret space program, and I do believe we're on Mars, and we probably are also on the moon. I mean, it's not impossible, but I have to have it another way. I do believe that you can go through portals and end up somewhere, because of all the interviews I've done with military and with intelligence people. One interview I did in one of my books with Frank Ferguson said his father worked on a deep space program and was never home in the 1950s. And he took out his battery from his phone, talked to me in Washington, D.C., and I believe him, because his father was military and he did work on this. So I'm not saying I don't believe those things. I'm just saying that it's very difficult to come out with these statements and then have your own TV show and then become a movie star and then all this. Because if you are of a danger of telling the truth, someone is going to shut you up.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Come on, this is why I take my hat off to you, because you're one of the not the good guys. I'm not going to class you as that. Of course you are, but you know what I mean. You're one that puts the two wills together, the consciousness and the nuts and bolts, and I think that's so important. But yeah, what you're saying is so right, and it's just I just don't know. What do you think it does to the field? That's what worries me a little bit. What's it do to the work? Do you think that's people like yourselves have worked so long for?
Well, it's a distraction. Everybody, I've been all over the world. I was just in Spain, and all they could talk about was the secret space program. And I said, hey, look at this book on Colonel Corso. Look at how everything was back engineered by the Army in the 1960s during the Kennedy administration. Well, you look at the historical facts of the ufological story and stop being all taken up by television.
But then let me just say something. Corey Goode would say to that the nuts and bolts are not interesting to the younger generation anymore, who have a shorter attention span and need something different. They need something different. That's what he's saying. The 20s, the younger generation, nuts and bolts just not work for them.
Well, then we go to where you and I are.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go to the fact that we're being visited. The younger generation loves the great videos of UFOs, and they are there. I mean, I just saw some in Turkey and some videos in Afghanistan, and they're not CGI. They're real, and it's during the day. There's some in Milano that Antonio Uzzi's taking. There's real UFO footage. And then you have to ask, what are they doing there? And when you ask, what are they doing there, then you ask the other question, if this is real, what does it mean for me as a human being on this planet? And then you have to go in an educational mode and ask the young people, do you realize they're coming to see you because they think that maybe you might change the order? In other words, you might change your society because you guys are young, and maybe you can change it so everybody grows up and becomes super intelligent and can have a dialogue with an ET. But the ETs today are looking down at the crazies going, who's going to want to talk to those people?
Right.
Because they're doing horrible things to each other.
Absolutely. And I just want to go back to something I said as well in this interview. When I said about Teresa, I've probably got the name wrong there, the young lady that interviewed Corey Good just recently. Listen, I'm happy for her that, that she can have a break like that, and that does her the world of good and her channel. My reason for saying I wish it could have been someone like you interviewing was because you read other people's material. You've been out there and actually been on the ground. You've been with people like Corso, which we're going to get into in a minute. You've done, do you know how many researchers out there, like as you've said before, do not read any other people's work, do not have any background in the material? That's why I was saying it about that young lady that interviewed him. What background or information?
I know, Kevin, but if I have a choice of Corey Good or Colin Andrews, I'm going to pick Colin Andrews.
I love Colin Andrews. Colin Andrews is a gentleman. I've spoke to Colin Andrews recently, right? I asked him to come into the documentary, and he was so nice to me, what he said. I mean, he couldn't do it, but he said he was just so nice in his comments that he said back to me, and I was touched by it, really, to be honest with you. And that's true, that is. So, yeah, he's a gentleman. He really is. And I do like him. But, yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, we'll move on from there. But let's, But my point was there, still saying it, going off, it is, you've done so much. You've read other people's material, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, no, I have to. Right now I'm reading Managing Magic by Grant Cameron about the intelligence community's involvement. And I bought 2 books when I was at MUFON. One of them is this man has all these pictures of what NASA has erased from the footage of the space shuttle and all the satellites that they're sending out. The thing is, so no, of course, but that's how you study something. I imagine that's how you study something. I mean, I don't think I go on TV or on internet to find my material. That's not how journalists do it. Journalists do it by studying it as if it's a university class and then talking to the people. My interview with Gaspare Di Lama and about the Amicizia case, he's 96 years old. I mean, he was wonderful. He actually, I had to go to the source about that case in Pescara in Italy in 1956. That's a 1956 case of aliens, human-type aliens that picked 10 Italians to do an experiment with and live together in symbiosis with them from 1956. I think it lasted 20 years.
Wow. And
I have to go to the guy that lived that. I can't just go on internet and read everything about that. I have to go to the man and ask him the questions.
Yeah.
And yes, I do read everything, and I personally, from my background, decide what's worth my while.
Right, absolutely. And, I want to get more into Corso, but what do you think Corso would make of the secret space program as it is right now? What do you think he would say if you could talk for him?
Well, Colonel Corso talked to me about time travel, so I know he's interested. He would listen. And a real intelligent person is a good listener. I mean, you notice I just didn't dismiss everything. I heard everybody's talk, and with a lot of interest. He believed in time travel. So, he told me that the government had discovered some kind of time machine, and I don't understand what he's talking about, but I think he's talking about the craft. The craft itself was a time machine. A lot of my work with the Latin Americans show that these people are time travelers. We have a serious problem with time, serious problem, because even the lectures, all of them had to deal with problems with time, space continuum. And what he wouldn't necessarily he was really funny. He even denied there was an Area 51. He just talks about what he knows. And he said to me, I'm just going to talk about what I was involved in, no hypothetical thing. And that is a sign of a very wise man. Talk about what you're involved in. Don't throw out all this other stuff. Because I went after him for Area 51, and he said, "Oh, there's no such thing." And I knew he wasn't going to talk about it. He knows there is such a thing. He knows. He was at Wright-Patterson, so he knows there's an Area 51. But he talked about only what he was involved in. So he's just going to look at it like I did, recognize some aspects of it. The time travel stuff is very interesting, and then just let it go. Let it go.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what is so obviously Corey is, bringing out the idea that the blue avians want to bring out, consciousness information. And as you say, you've met Corey. He's very, very, spiritual. But what's your views as a researcher on the nuts and bolts, meets the consciousness where you've gone with your work nowadays?
Okay. First of all, he can't just throw the word consciousness out there. You got to define it. Half the people don't even know what consciousness is. Consciousness means being aware, being awake, understanding everything all at once, being in the moment, living the day, knowing what your connection is to the universe. And that is the grad school of ufology. When you get into consciousness studies, the nature of reality, what you're doing here, what you personally are doing here. And a lot of people who are interested in UFOs and this kind of thing should ask themselves why. That means something in them when they were a child was activated, or a sighting they had was activated, or often I find it's in the DNA of the parents that the child is activated, the parents were activated in some way. And when you're activated and when you're in consciousness mode, you have to change something. It's not entertainment. You don't sit around and do consciousness. What you have to do is you have to find in your small way, wherever you live, whatever you do, how you can change the order to become more spiritual. These people that are coming have already passed the war stage, living in all of this, economy, sexuality, and all that. They've passed that. They're not playing there in that arena. They've passed that, and they're probably coming to this planet to see at what point we are in our evolution. Because I think that every planet that's out there that's inhabited is at a certain stage of evolution. I mean, some of them out there, some of the planets are probably really more primitive than we are. They're probably worse than we are. And I think whoever's visiting is like an anthropologist is going from planet to planet, comes over to planet Earth, which is a gorgeous planet, and says, what are these people doing with this gorgeous planet? Well, what are we doing with this gorgeous planet? Do we even care that this planet, the seas, the forests, the trees, the beauty, do we care that it lasts? Or are we raping the planet monetarily or ecologically? And if we're doing that, maybe they're going to try to wake us up a little, and that's consciousness. Now, will I stop the nuts and bolts? No, I can't. If there is a case, and I'm working on a case in New Mexico, that's a nuts and bolts case, I'm going to go there too.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. So do you think that the consciousness side of it is that these beings that are visiting us are, highly, spiritually advanced in the sense that they've had their mass awakening on the dimension or the planet they come from, right? Everyone's consciously awakened, in a sense that they're a life form having, with a soul, they're, having an experience, and that that us humans, our souls are connected to their souls, that all souls go back to the same place. Call it heaven, call it home, whatever you want to call it. So our evolution spiritually is their evolution in a conscious way. I mean, do you come across that kind of information?
Yes, everything you just said is real. We are one. All the energies of the universe is one. I don't know what you want to call it. We're one. We are one, and whatever happens here is upsetting them or affecting them, and we are connected to the oneness. But we're not awake or conscious to even understand that. A lot of people like you are, and you've already gone there, and your job is to go on radio and to talk about it so that it resonates with some people. My job is to produce the Laughlin Conference in Laughlin, Nevada, which is November 10th through 12th. That conference has the real nuts and bolts people like, Clifford Stone, who did crash retrievals, and told me about the beings that he encountered, and to go over to the Latin Americans who met the beings coming off the ships in Lima, Peru. Sisto Paz, Enrique Villanueva. We're going to talk about the Nazca mummy, which, by the way, it is. There were 3 of them, and they're doing the testing on them. People are using opinion as research, and just because they don't speak Spanish, they're canceling the whole thing out, which is ridiculous. Get Google Translate, get a Spanish interpreter, and look at the Spanish case. If it's not in your language, it's incredible the silliness that's going on. So I have Jaime Maussan coming to talk about that. I have Regina Meredith talking about the early days of the planet. I have people talking about the paranormal. I have it all mixed together because it is all mixed together. And that's my contribution. Your contribution is the radio show. But that we have to do something. I have to do something.
Well, we do. And so this is your conference you're putting on, yeah?
Yeah, I produce it, but it's out of my own pocket. I've had to finance it, myself, and there's no sponsors. There's no sponsors. This is the 4th year. Unfortunately, I overreached. I have 18 speakers, 9 men and 9 women, but even the idea of 9 men and 9 women is a balance. When I look at conferences everywhere else, it's 39 men and 1 woman, and it's ridiculous. There are a lot of women in the field that have a lot to offer, and whether they be researchers or intuitives or whatever it is, they have a lot to offer, and the balance needs to be there. Otherwise, we have a UFO old guard, a male-dominated field who believes, they're still looking at, putting pins in maps.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that's very well. Listen, I'm going to say to you, look, you're coming onto my documentary called "They Call Us Channelers," so maybe I might actually see you at that conference. Yeah, and maybe we can help you even just on this show promote it. But your funny thing you said there when you say it's my job through radio to do what I'm doing. But I've gone very much from that. I'm now channeling myself. And my thing is as well that we can all channel, that we all have a higher self, and we're all able to bring through teaching information. So there's other channelers out there like the Bashars and others that channel ET beings from other dimensions, because not all this is in the physical, is it? There's many people bringing through this information of consciousness, isn't there, nowadays?
Yeah, it is, and it's true that people, everybody can channel, but the problem is, and I'm going to talk from my point of view, I don't find the physical time to meditate. I find that all the people that have had contact with extraterrestrials, from Sisto Paz Wells to Ricardo Gonzalez to a lot of people, different people, they take the time to meditate, to still the mind, to allow the mind to be clear so that they can get messages. And, that's a discipline. As you know, that's a discipline. And a lot of us are not disciplined to go out there in the forest or in our backyards or wherever the nature is to still the mind and allow the people to talk to you, allow the ETs or whoever it is, the spirit guides to talk to you. We just don't do that. What they're doing is they're addicted to the internet, they're addicted to technology, and they're hoping to get all their answers off of that. And that is not the way it's done. It's done where people actually do a discipline. When Dr. Greer does his CE5 protocols, before we even do anything, he does the puja ceremony in Sanskrit. He recites Sanskrit mantras for half an hour, and we're right around him, and then there's like an orange peel and some rose petals, and he does kind of a ritual. And when Ricardo Gonzalez does it, we're doing for 2 hours, and just, and other mantras from the Aztecs and the Mayans. It's kind of a vibrational way of setting up a force field that allows the ETs or whoever it is to talk to you. And it's not done in the middle of a city. It's not done where traffic is. It's not done on internet. It's not done on your cell phone. You have to go out into these remote areas where there is no electricity, electric lines and interference. And if you do that and you meditate, yes, you can not only channel, you can get a lot of messages.
Yes, of course. Thank you just for reminding people there just of the process as well. Yeah, because I'm just kind of speeding through this interview because there's so much to talk about. But yeah, that's very important. And, you go back a few years, Paula, you would have never have seen yourself doing this kind of stuff, neither.
No. One of the things that I really admire about my colleagues, if I'm sitting down having coffee, is the ability to have changed your mind. You wouldn't be able to talk to me about contact aliens. I wouldn't have gone there. I couldn't. It was just not part of my data bank and my brain. I have come such a long way in the last month, being in Monte Perdido with Ricardo Gonzalez and 200 Spanish-speaking people with messages from the Apunians that came down to us in this field under the Pyrenees. I would never have done any of that because I just couldn't go there. But the ability to understand that this is not just about nuts and bolts. It is not just about categorizing the government's involvement in the UFO cover-up. It is about why they're here. And so, Kevin, that's all I'm doing. Why are they here? I mean, what do I have to do with this? What do you have to do with this? That is the real question. That is the real question.
Well, let's get into that. It's the evolution, isn't it, of waking up? Because what difference does it do between being awakened and being asleep, as in not looking at consciousness subjects that it basically is, the difference between, how you treat people. It's love, isn't it? Love is the most important key in all of this. That's the one thing of all the teachings, isn't it? No matter who it comes from.
Yeah, but that word is thrown around so much that what I usually say is love is the glue that unites everything: your ideas, the people, the energies, the souls. It's the glue. It's the glue of the universe. Love is the glue. That's the name we put on it, is love. But it's the glue that glues everything together. And it basically, I'm going to say something. I don't know if this resonates with you. Other planets may have a collective consciousness. That means they do good for the other person. In other words, they would never hurt their neighbors because they would be hurting themselves. Our planet is, I think, an experiment in free will. Everybody does what's good for number one. And that is not even the Christian message. The Christ said, number one, love God, and then don't do to your neighbor what you love yourself as you would your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. I'm sorry. And the thing is that if you loved your neighbor, if you cared or respected your neighbor, none of the crime, none of the wars, none of the things that go on in this planet would go on. So in a way, the Christian message is a collective consciousness, which is probably on other planets. That's why they've surpassed their horrible history and are able to travel in space. They're able to travel in space because they don't have to mess with the silliness that we're messing with on this planet. But this planet could be an experiment in free will. And free will means you, like Monsignor Balducci from the Vatican told me, he said free will is knowing what's bad and what's good and doing bad anyway.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. And even if we've got ET, even if our DNA's been manipulated by, ET races of all sorts, right? To get to where we are now, from the ape to what we are now, right? then maybe that was only done because that was the only way for consciousness to come into a more highly reframed vehicle like this, for it to have the highest experience, and then to have these lives that we have as well. I'm not saying that Zachariah Stitchin's teachings aren't come into here somewhere in other people's ideas that we've been altered, but I think it's all for the evolution, isn't it? For the soul, is so keen to want to come down here in the human form or into an extraterrestrial form. I mean, who's to say, right, that actually, when we talk about time travel with Corso's work, that actually, they are not from our future. So, they're coming back here, some of them interdimensionally, not just interplanetary, but interdimensionally, to increase their vibrations, so that by increasing our soul level now, they're increasing their soul level in the future. By awakening us now, they are more progressed in the future from where they came from.
Yes, and you're very correct. And as far as Zacharias, people, they just buy into a package because they don't bother to do all the research. But Zacharias Sitchin Anunnaki thing is only for for me, because I've talked to the Native Americans and I've talked to the South Americans. The Anunnaki were not in South America, and they certainly weren't with the Lakota Sioux here in the United States. The Native Americans believe that their ancestors came from the stars. In particular, with the Lakota, they believe they came from the Pleiades. And in South America, the Popol Vuh is their Bible, and they believe the ant people are the people from below the earth, were the ones that populate. And that doesn't, so that the Anunnaki did not just create a slave planet all over the place, because there were people all over the place. What I'm watching, though, is when you do what I heard this weekend a lot, and claim that this planet is a slave planet, you're taking away free will. Nobody's enslaving me, and that's why. No, that's crazy. That's insane. We have free will, and if you don't want to watch the bad stuff, you don't watch it. And conspiracy theory, all it does is lower the vibration.
Of course it does. There's never a solution in conspiracy. There's never an answer. Never. But then conspiracy and fear-based talk shows, they're very attractive because the majority of the population on this planet is asleep. They are unaware that they're a soul having a human experience, or they're unaware that they're energy having an experience, right? It doesn't even have to be a soul. We're just using human words here to express some idea of what we have of this greater reality. And what do we really have is just a grain of sand on an infinitive beach. That's how much we know right now. And that's really how much we know about the UFO subject as well, in one sense. I mean, what if all this is just a holographic universe and it's not even what we think it is? Even the UFO subject is not what we think it is. It's more than what we can comprehend, right? So to say we've got it all worked out, we've not. But my ideas are straying more towards the idea that potentially we're having infinite number of existences right now in parallel universes, just variations in the life that we're having now, but just different. The soul splits off, has an infinite number of experiences, and who's to say that the majority of people that are asleep out there, they're stuck on some sort of karmic wheel that they can't get off. And now is the time. We've come back to this kind of groundhog life again, and now is the time when we're saying, right, we've awoken. Maybe it's time we just shine a little torch into these people's path, just to say, look, there's a better way. You don't need to keep coming to do these karmic cycles that you're doing with these people, where I'm the perpetrator and you're the victim. Even though those karmic contracts have a lot of decency in the fruition that they give to the soul, but maybe we don't have to do that. I'm sure that when we come back here with such free will that we're allowed just to go down the slide again and just go straight into the karmic deals that we've set each other. But it's time for change now. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, you put so many concepts into what you just said. Yeah, I'm okay that it's a holographic universe. I'm okay that it's all some kind of game. But the bottom line that you just mentioned is that we're spiritual beings. I mean, do you remember the Police, what's his name, Sting, saying we are, living in a material world. We are spiritual beings living in a material world. I mean, in the end, that's it. No matter what the game is, and it's probably a game, but you're going nowhere if you. Let's remember, you talked about karma and so forth, but there's religions of the world that don't buy into that either. There's organized religions, and the problem is with a lot of this, and you probably know this, that everything will fall. Economy, religion, our belief system, everything will fall if the truth comes out. So what's happening is that they're holding, the different institutions of the world are holding on tight. So they're holding on tight to the petrodollar. They're holding on tight to the dogma of religion. They're holding on tight to money. They're holding on tight because when the order does change, or when the reality does change, all that stuff goes by the wayside, and people have to readjust, and a lot of people can't handle it. And poor people, I mean, they shouldn't have to handle it. I think that there probably is some kind of plan, and I hope it's not disaster, to wake the planet up. I'm going to go back to ecology, though, because I don't want to destroy this beautiful planet. This planet is too beautiful to have earthquakes, water rising because that big piece had just broken off in Antarctica, and all of this stuff.
Well, let me ask you this. You're so right. What if the Earth was going through a pole shift? What if this was some natural cycle where the Earth is just going to pole shift, and that's, we need to, maybe part of our awakening is because we just need to be a bit more conscious now, because when it does happen, it will bring us all together, because it's going to destroy a lot of places, a lot of the coastal stuff and everything else. It's going to, if there was a pole shift, I'm not saying there's going to be, but if there was something like that, then, then it's going to bring us together more, isn't it? I suppose if there was something impending.
But I don't want to do it that way. It definitely will. Whenever there's any kind, and whether it's a war or tsunami, people come together to help each other because people are basically good. But I don't want to do it that way. I'm trying to do it. That's why I have the conference in Laughlin. People walk out of there and they're all emotional because they get the truth from all different angles.
Yes.
And by the way, I'd like to mention that website is www.starworksusa.com, starworksusa.com. Look at the speakers. I don't want to do it the catastrophe way. I'd rather do it the wake-up way.
Well, yeah, but then, us human beings always do things the hardest way. We're good at that, right? We're very good at that. But no, I mean, maybe there's an easier way. I'm sure there is, and that's what you're doing as well. And we've been putting the website for your conference on throughout this interview as well, and we're going to be linking it at the bottom of the description. Now, just listen, we've missed out so much of your work here. We've missed out the beginning part and everything else, right? But I wanted to get into the subjects we've talked about right now. I want to go back to Colonel Corso because he's an important person that came into your life. When you got to interview him in 1997, this was a guy. Well, you tell us who Colonel Corso was, and you tell us why, in your opinion, he's very credible.
Okay, first of all, people need to know that I started my work with Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I work with Alan Hynek, who was an astronomer, from 1979 to 1986 when he died. So I worked nuts and bolts because I was working with a scientist. So I knew it was real from the beginning. Then I interviewed Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, and I also interviewed Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada. There's 4 of my interviews on YouTube because he read Corso's book. And Paul Hellyer, who was a defense minister, said, is Corso telling the truth about the fact that, he back engineered these for the Army? Remember, I'm saying that because people say 1960, but the first crash was in 1947. But in 1947, in the United States, the Army and the Air Force were joined. It was Army Air Force. So they split. So the Air Force is going to take some of these toys or some of these artifacts, and they're going to do their own thing, but they're not going to have a Corso to talk about it. So the Army, which is Corso, and he was the head of intelligence in Rome, so he's not somebody off the street, and he's not lying. He was 83 years old. When I met him at the 50th anniversary of the Roswell crash, and he had, given the book over to Bill Burns to publish with Simon & Schuster, because there were 2 or 3 mistakes in the book, our own people debunk our own people, and they crucified Corso. here in the United States. So we brought him to Italy and had him speak there at 2 major conferences. Remember that our own people are the greatest debunkers, because for many reasons. And so Corso told us that he basically was part of research and development at the Pentagon. The colonel, General Trudeau came to him and said, "Whoever's alive, the last one alive, talk about this before you die." And so Colonel Corso was the last one of that group. Trudeau had gone to Corso with these artifacts. He said the fiber optics, the high tenacity fibers, the microchip, the laser, and everything that he had that was physical there from the Roswell crash were taken to major industry. Corso went with envelopes of money, if you read the book Conversations with Colonel Corso, and he went with German scientists because they cared about the technology. Now, that Corso, in his later years, said the greatest gift we got was the alien body because it could travel in space, but all we could think about was creating weapons of war. So, that is the high military, priority. That's where the money is, creating the weapons of war. And he said, yes. He said, we worked with, night screening devices for our soldiers in Vietnam. So all of this stuff, this wonderful artifacts, these things that could free energy, they're not going to throw the craft in the trash. They're going to figure out how it flies without gas and oil. All of these things that they got from the crashes, and there was not just one crash, there were at least 4 crashes in the New Mexico area, and there are crashes all around the world. If you get the book by Ryan Wood called Magic Eyes Only, Magic Eyes Only has 93 crashes, and the Americans are the first ones to go in. That's part of the treaty. The thing is, they're not going to throw this stuff in the garbage. I mean, you're going to go in there and you're going to see all these different things that are advanced, and you're going to throw them in the trash? No. And what's happened is that the artifacts, if we're talking nuts and bolts, have gone into the military-industrial complex, which is making money off them. And they're not in the military, they're not in the Army, Air Force. They're in industry. And the great thing about Stephen Greer names the companies that they've gone into, the industrial companies that they have gone into. In the beginning, it was General Electric, Bell Labs, Lockheed Martin, just all of these places that are going to make money off this stuff. So then when a person like General Eisenhower comes in and says, I can't do anything about it, it's gone into the military-industrial complex, I can't stop it, it is too late. It is too late. Nothing can be done. These things have gone into the military-industrial complex, and in order for them to be used, we have to create wars.
I mean, listen, Corso's work is documented in the book The Day After Roswell. What a great book that is. And obviously your new book now, Conversations with Colonel Corso, which we're linking in this description of this video as well, which is another fantastic book that you've done. He would talk about as well that he would sometimes go into trances and see other dimensions as well.
Yeah, well, he was a strange person. But the only way that I can say this is because I was with him. He was totally strange. I mean, he said to me that when he was 3 and 4 years old, he was from Pennsylvania, just like the little boy in Close Encounters, he used to run into the fields during a lightning storm. And his mother was very, very upset. And then once he talks about an incident where he was playing with marbles on the road, and it must have been in the early 1940s, and his doctor hit him with the town car, and the doctor saw him disappear and appear. So he brought him to the grandmother, the Sicilian grandmother, and said, "This child doesn't have a scratch on him. What happened to him?" So, and then the colonel, and because I was with him, remembered his past lives, like a lot of the generals during World War II. He made me stop a car in the middle of going across the Italian terrain. He went out into the field and he said, I fought a battle here. He said, with Cesare Borgia, the Borgias. And he said, would you look that up, Paula? He said, I know, I've been here before. So, and then during Easter, I remember walking in on him to invite him to dinner in his a room in the hotel. I knocked on the door, and there he looked like he was in a trance state. And he said, sometimes I can see documents in these other dimension, and I try to pull them out. So I think not only did he have these natural tendencies, he had these natural tendencies and was destined to tell the truth. I mean, he was a general who did the Korean War. He was the head of intelligence room in 1945. He did the Battle of Monte Cassino for the people that knew the Italian campaign. And he also was stationed in Germany. And in 1947, he was at Fort Riley, Kansas, when a cargo came by. It was put in the veterinary quarters. He lifted the tarp and saw an alien body. It was not, I don't believe that particular body necessarily was from Roswell. Everybody keeps saying Roswell.
No.
But we had many crashes then.
And again, using discernment, there could have been some misinformation that he was giving out, maybe just tiny fragments, just so that he was covering himself and his family to be protected, maybe.
No, that was done by Bill Burns. He would never do that.
Right.
What had happened is Bill Burns did that, and Corso, when he came to us, gave us his original manuscript. It's called The Dawn of a New Age. It's just been published in Italian. And for people that want to read the original manuscript with no mistakes and no misinformation, they have to go on Open Minds TV and they have to download it. It's 183 pages. I have the manuscript. I have it. It's been done in Italy, and we had to clean that up. It's called The Dawn of a New Age, and it's all his words. But Bill Burns had to put the word Roswell in there to sell the book, and Colonel Corso was never at Roswell. He was at Fort Riley, Kansas. So whatever the mistakes are, they are not his.
Right. Okay. And let me just say, this is what, he obviously, we talked about him having some abilities here, which is a bit unusual for a general of his ranking. But then again, what if, he had chosen to come down into this existence to, as one of his plans was to help with disclosure, and maybe, he was connected to some race that he had a previous life in some other dimension or some other planet. You don't know, dude. You know what I mean? I mean, was there something more to meet than meets the eye with this man's soul lineage? Yeah.
Yeah. When you go to read the book, you'll read that he had a contact experience with a little being in White, when he was the head of a missile battalion in White Sands, and the being said for the colonel to shut the radars down so he could leave. And the colonel, being Sicilian, pulled out a gun and pointed it at the being. And the being, he said, "Friend or foe?" And the being said, "Neither. I need to leave. Would you like to come aboard and look at the inside?" And Colonel Corso said, "What do you have to offer me?" And the being said, "A new world if you can take it."
Wow.
And when I met Colonel Corso, that's the interview he gave me, Kevin.
Yeah.
And because I was, the way I was, I refused to print it. I refused to print the interview because I thought they'd think he was a crazy old man, and that was my being nuts and bolts.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, I'm not going to print this. Just tell me the back engineering. I don't want to hear the rest. And it wasn't until he died that I realized that contact he had with the being that said, "A new world, we can offer you a new world if you people can handle it," was the main message. But the colonel came to Italy. He told everybody that. We wrote it down. I've written articles since then about it. But do military people have contact? A whole bunch. Just read my books. I have 5 books, and they're all military. Yes. Charles Hall was a weatherman on the Area 51 base. He interacted with the tall white aliens.
Yes.
He passed an intelligence test. He was 100%, 99% accurate. So the thing is that the military can also be contactees.
Yeah, people don't think of it that way, do they? But that's a new way of thinking about it, most definitely. Okay, well, look, we're at the end of the interview right now, and we've barely touched the surface, right? But I think we got into some interesting concepts and conversation there. What would you say then, just right now, is the most important message of your work?
The most important message is a return to reading books, the original sources. Do not listen. Do not let your opinion be what somebody tells you to think. It's ridiculous. They don't have a background, and they're putting it in a box. Do not put the UFO phenomenon in any kind of box. There is no box to put it in. There is no context to put this in. It is too unusual, it is too revolutionary, and it's too transformational. Everybody do your own research.
Absolutely. Well, Paola Harris, just thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and keep doing what you're doing.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests by going to themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.